Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. It's a weekly mission to just create a taxonomy of the entire depth and breadth of human experience via nouns. This is episode 148 was what I was going to say. Hello and welcome to episode 148 of Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. That's what I wanted to say. I'll do it better next week. I noticed Adam Buxton says the episode number this morning, so I was like, I'm going to say the episode number. He's only up to 142. That's what happens when you have to interview a celebrity every week. Be your own celebrity. Anyway, yes, I am celebrity podcaster Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Majic.
Also celebrity podcaster.
Celebrity.
And this week, our subject this week is something that I did not get really understand the significance of until quite late in life, if you can call, late 30s, early 40s late in life. But interest. Like interest on money. And we did a couple of money episodes ages ago, but we really didn't touch on the way that interest keeps the rich rich and the poor poor. And I just wanted to talk about interest and some of the other systems we have, institutions and systems we have that keep the poor poor and keep the rich rich. I'm
up for this conversation. I've agreed to it. I think I have. Interest is a slippery, funny little dodgy mofo.
Slippery little ferret.
It gets you when you're young if you don't know or it can do.
Oh yeah, I mean,
I will speak from a basis of personal things. But yes, interest. It is a bit. It all sounds very not expensive, but it is expensive.
It's not expensive, and it sounds small, and it sounds like, whatever, I need the money.
And it sounds like just the cost of having the money that you need, because the time that will take to save it is so vast and all that kind of thing.
And in a very real sense, it is the cost of having the money. It's the whole system is set up that way. And it's some stuff where I learned from Team Human podcasts and things like that. So anyway, let's play some music. Hi, Ivanka. It's been a couple of weeks.
It has.
So I imagine this section will be a little longer than normal. How's it going? How's it been? What have you been up to?
It has been a little longer. I was working very, 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 very hard, and then I got very tired. But I'm happy that I have got at least December and through to the middle of January, by the looks of things, just working at a much more leisurely pace, not space. So it seems I have work for the new year. It's not signed on the dotted line, but it's in place. So that immediately creates a sense of, right, I can finish this project off nicely. And I can spend a bit more time on things like Restaurants Brighton Natural Health Centre. I'm enjoying reading. I've mentioned before that I'm reading chapters of a book as my friend writes the book. And I'm finding that really, I'm not sure I'm giving a useful critique, but I'm finding the actual experience very inspiring, I have to say. And it leaves me kind of eager to do stuff. And I think it's also weirdly reinvigorated my interest in the podcast, because I think the book is primarily about how to design in this world that is in the mess it's in, and how to create futures that work for us, or even how to create a presence that works for us. And so I'm really looking forward to talking about those things and making and sort of letting them infiltrate my work and hopefully some more people's work, in the same way that the last couple of years of the last 147 episodes have undoubtedly changed my approach, or honed and tuned my approach to the ways I work and the way I organise things. So I'm feeling quite, Up for it, really.
Okay, good.
That is where I think I'm at. I've got
Who's
loads
just in? Ivanka still wants to do podcast.
After 147 episodes, I'm
crazy.
ready for another 147. In other more interesting news, and more important, I think, than all of the other things I've mentioned, what is really nice is that I get to do drop off and pick up for nursery, and spend a little bit more time with my child. We've made clothes for the Barbie that we rescued from the sea. We do a bit of rubbish pickup. We also do it whilst paddleboarding, and we found a Barbie face down in the sea, naked. So we call her Rescue Barbie. So Rescue Barbie now has some clothes that we've made. And so we've done things.
Can I ask what kind of clothes?
Well, do you know what? I was actually quite pleased with myself, and I will send you. I might even send you a little video of Barbie dancing.
Do a little kind of catwalk, slow motion.
We made a skirt and a top. Listen, it's been a long time since I made proper clothes for anyone. I think I stopped. I made myself clothes until I was about, 13, 14. And then I was like, I'm going out. Going out is much more fun than making clothes. So I had to really, really work hard to... Oh, I've also knitted 2 things.
Wow.
I've just been
a craft powerhouse.
I have. I've knitted like this. In fact, that bright pink thing over there, that's my office waistcoaty thing. And I've knitted a sort of a hat scarf thing. So yes, anyway, look, I mean,
Great.
When is the last time I had so many things at the kickoff of the podcast?
I don't know. There's
Never.
good energy. I'm feeling it and I'm liking it.
How are you, Michael?
I'm very well. I've got 4 things written down and I want to talk about all of them. First thing is, so because we had a couple of weeks out of the podcast, I decided that when I got some spare time, when we had some time off the podcast, I was going to give my YouTube channel some love, and I ended up making this video explaining how to hack a bit of music hardware. And it was like what I did was like literally screen captured installing VirtualBox, installing like Vagrant, installing all these developer tools, and just to try and explaining Git a little bit, explaining like here's where you edit the code, and then sort of explaining how to also. And then I sort of made a little website that let you make patterns for this module. It's a drum module. Then check them out in the browser before taking the numbers and putting them in the thing. So it ended up actually being like 20 hours of production in the end, when I'd freed up 5 hours maybe. So it sort of ended up taking a little bit longer, and it's tremendously niche as a thing to be making a sort of nice, quite funny, well-produced video for. But it was a great response. It was really nice. It was... I think I saturated my limited market very quickly, including like a retweet by the person that makes the module that I was talking about, the big music tech blog. He was just like, I love this, and like posted it a couple of times, made an article around it. And someone sent me a $5 like within like the first couple of hours. I got these long comments, like loads of people like wanting to know more. And it was really a rewarding thing to have done, because it was like, because a lot of the videos on that channel, part of my mission has been like just try and get across what I'm doing, because it's like it's really specific and I need to explain myself. But this one was like I'd had some messages from people on Facebook, and I'd said like this guy was like, oh, can you do? He sort of wanted me to do a tutorial on it, and I was like, right, I think that's what I'll do for my next one. So, but the fact that people like even like there's this shop that sells like DIY modules. That I guess he was like, yeah, people always get stuck on this, so it's going to be really great to have a video to send them when they sort of buy these, like, make their own modules and they want to install the firmware on it and all that. And actually, like, I was talking to another guy, I was like, I could potentially turn this into a little like a browser-based, make your beats in the browser, and then you can like export a firmware thing that can just be an audio file that you can just like put onto the device. So it could potentially make some money if I decide to give it a bit more attention. But it's so niche, and I'd really felt like this is such a small thing. It feels like kind of a waste of time maybe to be spending so much time on it. But like it gave me that feeling of being useful, of people kind of caring what I've done, of people actually like valuing, that feeling of having created value for someone else is something that I'm obviously like pretty disconnected from in the last sort of couple of years. So yeah, that was really nice. That went well. Link in the description if you probably. I mean, I think it's as a sort of here's what programming is like is quite interesting, just even on that level.
Yeah. Well, so you really are a celebrity.
Oh, it's so famous. 1,000 views on. No, it was funny because it sort of got up to, I don't know what the views are, but it was like 200, 300, 500, 1,000 views in the first few days. So, which is really good. But then I think it sort of tops out pretty quickly. But that's what. But at the same time, we thought with our mechanical techno video, we thought that market was going to saturate pretty quickly. I mean, it's a much more visual thing, and it hooked into this ASMR thing unexpectedly. But we kept thinking we must have saturated anyone that's interested by now. But it just kept going and going. I was like, well, maybe that'll happen. It didn't happen, but it was nice. And sort of speaking of music, so something else I'm going to talk about. That was number one.
Is this number two
it's going to be
now?
the whole top. Number two is going to be. My brother said, "Have you heard of this Jacob Collier?" And I was like, I don't think so. And I did a bit of searching because my brother is another musician. He sort of takes a different attitude to it, but he's very good. He's very good. I'll link to one of his. He's doing some sort of live looping beatboxing stuff on YouTube at the moment, and it's nice that he asks me for sort of advice on how to produce it and things like that. But he said he gave me this recommendation, and I looked in, and the first video I watched was his Moon. What's it called? Moon River cover, and I was just like transfixed. I was like, this guy. I mean, that's musiciansmanship. That's someone that knows. And then I watched this hour and a half. He goes through his Logic set, the music software set, just showing like every single. It had like 96 parts of harmony that he'd recorded, and it's doing all these like. And his relationship to harmony, he can explain every single thing he's done. And he's got so in terms of timing, in terms of chords, in terms of pure harmonies versus sort of like well-tempered like harmonies that you get on a piano, quarter tone shifts. He's sort of like creating this tension by sort of going up in quarter tones over sort of like the space of a minute. He's like, so usually you have semitones is what Western music is sort of usually does. And these sort of flourishes where he's like stepping through like a fifth of a semitone kind of thing, but like really precisely moving through it, layering. Also, he's like, he at the beginning of the video, he sort of put out this call and got a load of musicians to just give him a note. So it's got like freaking Quincy Jones. Like Chris Martin, and loads of cool people, he had like 150 of these moons, and he was showing that. Like Beardy Man was in there, so I was like, grumble, grumble. But just has given me a sort of, and the way his voice is amazing, and he plays the piano like a mother. Like there's his kind of relationship with that keyboard is incredible, and he does these. He did this like live set, which was 20 minutes of him. But there were 4 of him in the room, but it was like sort of delivered so naturally and relaxed, and like they're talking to each other between the songs, and then they're playing this, and I'm like, how has he done this? How is this possible? So like. Absolutely has like sort of given me, but also like when I tried it, I was like, I can get some of these tones with my voice. I hadn't tried it before, and it's given me like a new perspective on what I've been doing, and combined with the fact I've been doing these like I've made 2 hours a week on Saturdays now that I leave Sharon at home and I come back to the studio and I do a live stream. And it's been ropey to start with, but yesterday I'm just sort of feeling excited about how much expertise and skill there is to build when it comes to music. And so Jacob Collier has given me some inspirations there.
Wow.
Music, eh?
Before you go on to number 3, because I thought you were going to go on to number 3.
Yeah.
I do that. Number 1, number 2. And my daughter already goes, Mummy, no 1, 2, A, B, C. Just tell me. It's like, you're 5, don't argue with me. Yes, so but that sounds, I'm really desperate now to see this video. So yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yes, cool. I won't do all 4. One of them can sort of be tied into there. Well, one of them is we got woken up at like 5 a.m. the other night, and someone was like literally smashing down the door of someone, like yelling on the door and banging on it, and he eventually managed to kick this door in across the road in the middle of the night. So that was fun. The police eventually came, but then the sort of police come. I don't think there was anyone there. Because, but he got through the first, but obviously it's flat, so, like, you've got to get through another door. But then the police come, and they're like, yeah, he's gone. And then they're like, yeah, get the hammer. We're going to have to smash the next door in. It's like, why are the police? So if you come back to your house, it's like, okay, well, this abusive ex, I guess, has, like, smashed down my front door. And then the police have come to help. And to help, they've smashed down my inner door. So thanks, Chris. The system at work.
Sounds marvellous.
It was definitely one of those. Do we intervene or what? I felt like if there's someone in the flat, they must have called the police by now. So I guess there's no one there. But should we be calling the police or what? Like, that thing. But then, it was a weird thing, weird experience. And so then Sorry.
No.
I'm sort of talking and not really giving you a chance to respond.
All right.
The only other thing is let's tie this into interest is that Apple have said that they're cutting their commission from 30% to 15% for smaller businesses. So if you earn less
very kind of them.
Well, I do always say, why do you need all this money? But they've actually put some money. They've actually made a thing, and it's actually going to be a huge deal for me. So instead of them taking 30% of my income, they're only going to take 15%, and that's at the moment that means that's 300-400 quid a month kind of thing.
That is a big deal.
So up to £1 million basically, and then
is that
they start
what they
charging their 30.
Is that what they classify as a small business?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
good.
I'm golden for a bit. I'm really I'm just. It seems like financial things are I've got this sort of low but basically passive income thing going on, which is really, this was the dream. I'm starting to awaken those. Okay, let's get some music made. Let's get all this stuff plugged in. Let's get this camera set up. Anyway, so it's exciting times for me, and I wish I'd done the things that made this possible a lot long ago, and one of the reasons I didn't was because I did not understand interest.
Oh, what a great segue, Michael.
Interest. Sharon's going to say, yes, you're talking too much on this one.
Is she? Well, no, I think I did quite a good intro. I think it's perhaps I think it's more a case of the fact that when we do our intros, they're not necessarily a conversation.
Yeah.
Because you need to tell the story that you want to tell.
Yeah.
So this is the conversation part of the podcast.
This is the conversation. This is where we interact, potentially.
So yes, I've paid a lot of interest in my time.
Have you now? Me too.
Yes. I think there was a certain period of my life where I kind of refused to make any major life decisions because I can't, because I have this credit card debt. It wasn't enormous by any stretch of the imagination. It was, I don't think it was enormous based on my salary and blah, blah, blah. But it was there and I just couldn't get rid of it. So I kind of was arranging my life to service this debt that, I don't know. I think it was, and I'd sort of thought I was being clever at various points, sort of like moved it to interest-free credit cards and la 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 la, did all the foolish things,
What's an interest-free credit card? How does that work?
They're banking
operate?
on you being an idiot and not paying it off in the interest. Okay. Surely it's the same as
there's fixed
it's like,
time
you've got 0% for a year and you're like, yeah, I'll knock this off in a year, and then you go, ooh, but I really need to buy this thing.
Yeah. And how do you sort of classify your attitude to delayed gratification? In terms of like wanting to buy something and
saving up to get it rather than what's my attitude to it? Now it's fine because it's not hard for me to save money at the moment because I'm of where I am in life.
Yeah, not living in Hampstead.
I'm not living in Hampstead. I'm not living in Hampstead, though I did enjoy that, and there wasn't a particularly expensive flat that I rented, let's be clear. But that whole kind of... So I'll give you what probably set me off on a wrong path. So I was at university in the first year that they introduced student loans. And they were like £1,000 a year, £1,200 a year, but they were very, very low interest. And I remember sort of being 19, first year of university, coming home, they've got these student loan things, 1,200 quid. I could use that. I always worked through university. I'm just going to put that out there as well. I always had a cleaning job, supermarket job, some kind of a job. And my dad just went, if you study electronic engineering and you can't pay that debt off, then you're really basically. So you might as well take the loan and have a nice 6 weeks travelling around Europe, go to Croatia, drive your car. I was like, okay. So I did that every year in this kind of way of like, I'm going to get debt now, and I think it set me a slightly wrong mindset because I kept thinking that, okay, where I didn't start off in life with a bucket of money, I was going to make up for that by having a really good job and then creating a negative bucket of money that then I could like fill up with my cleverness.
Exceptionalism.
So yes, I think that's probably quite a good summary.
Yeah. Well, because my I always think back to when I was like 12, 11. Well, when I was sort of like 12, 13, and it was my mission in life to own a Commodore Amiga. And I just was like, well, I can't have a job until I'm 13. And I just had to have this thing. I might not win the Blue Peter competition. So I've got to just like try and save up for this thing. And I was all set to save up for this Amiga. And it was like, what am I getting paid? Like £6 a week or something? This is a 300 quid thing. So it was going to take me a while. I had 2 paper rounds, so I did a paper round every single morning, and I also did like sometimes in the afternoons as well. So I just, as much money as I could earn, I would try to sort of work for it. And then I guess it was either 6 months in or a year and a half in. My dad and step, they said, let's why don't we get you this thing now and you can pay us back. And so I sort of got to have the thing early, and there's loads of reasons that's good. It's like more time for me to like learn it and understand it and spend on it, and probably like that did that did add to my just general sort of fluency with computers that has sent me being able to do pretty much what I want in later life. But I think it sort of gave me this attitude that, I'm going to need that, so I should. It's okay if I do it on the credit card or if I do it on the thing, because like it's better to have it sooner because I'll get that time that I wouldn't have got with it, and I'll be more productive because I'll have this thing. And that was one of the things. Credit card wise, I'm not going to do an origin story here, but credit card wise, like I guess I had one since I could like 18 or 19 or whatever. And there was constantly, I go through periods with it. I cleared it every so often, but like I'd go through periods where if things got, I think I had to buy a new laptop at one point. Yeah. So that sort of like ended up sticking on there. Or I kind of had a new job. My problem is I'd get a new job with a a salary that I know is sort of guaranteed for the foreseeable, and then I'd make these big purchases on the credit card because I was like, well, I know how I'm going to pay that off now, so I'll buy it. And then 11 months later, I've quit the job, inevitably. So
I think part of the problem with the credit card, because I got my first one probably just as I finished. Well, I know I had one just as I finished university, and then I went travelling. So travel, you see, I've applied the same principle as you applied to buying a computer. Travel one does in order to broaden one's horizon and learn things was my bit. So it's like, so that doesn't count. That's not being frivolous. That is, I don't know, somehow doing something good for yourself. So I went on my post-university backpacking, Trans-Siberian Railway, blah, blah, was all done on credit. It wasn't done on money that I'd saved. But you talking about your paper round and thing, and I think but that hooked me in because I kept getting just given more and more limit. And in some bizarre way of not thinking it through on my own part, I then would go, well, if they're recognising that I have the ability to pay this off, then I don't know. I don't know if I ever even said that to myself, but I probably did in some bizarre way. It's like I'm just much more.
Well, I had this letter. So at the weekend, I had this letter. I had this credit card letter, and I was like, I open it up, and I'm like, I think I was paying there was like a yearly fee for it, but I hadn't used it for like 2 years or like. And it said you've got your limit's been raised to £12,500.
Yeah, and you're like,
what are you talking about? But it doesn't say anything about the interest rate anywhere on that letter. And I kind of try and find it, and it's quite hard to find. And then I find it's probably about 20% interest on that debt. So that is a lot of bloody money. You know, I once made this when I quit LBI, it was actually like an ex-girlfriend, but I was like, I knew she just sold her house, and I was like, can you sort of lend me some money to, like, would you mind? I'll pay you, I said I'd pay you 20% interest on it. And to me, that was like, whatever. And now I'm like, she got a good deal out of that. Flipping heck.
The insidious thing about that, really, that sort of debt interest, is that it's not available to you when you're doing savings interest.
Exactly. And this is the fundamental imbalance. Like, they give you now 0.1% interest. I lend the bank. So, this is the ultimate rant. I lend the bank a few grand. I get 0.1% interest on it. Bank lends me a few grand. They get 20% interest on it. How in a society is this okay? That's not any way sounding like Bernie Sanders, but like, this is a goddamn scam of the highest order.
It is.
It's an outrage.
But we also have all these bizarre things where we kind of, again, filtered into my head somewhere along the way, is that you need a credit rating. And in order to have a credit rating, one needs to have a credit card, and one needs to borrow money and show that and all this kind of like. And
I guess the credit rating links to the mortgage thing.
Yeah. Because you need to get that debt.
Gone into that. But see, it's my mission in life to saddle myself with a 25-year debt, which again, the mortgage thing, I was always like, well, at this point, I'm kind of back to, I want to buy somewhere outright because mortgages are... No one rich would invest in just one thing, put all their eggs in their entire lifetime of their wealth in one investment. And you're told that this house is an investment. And it sort of weirdly has... just because of how fucked up the housing market is, it sort of seems like it is, but there can be a property. My dad was always like, this next property crash is coming any minute. So I was always like, well, I'll wait for the crash and then I'll think about buying somewhere. And it just never happened. Through thick and thin, it seems like these house prices have gone up and up and up to absurd degrees, where in the sort of 70s you could actually buy a house probably with money. And now you can't buy a house with money you've earned. You have to buy a house by borrowing capital and paying interest on it for the rest of your life. And who does that help? It helps sort of the system that is in place. It doesn't have to be this way.
No.
But it just means like my goal in life is like not to get a mortgage again. It's to get the £1 million. It's on my little post-it note here. All my other ones came true, so I'm sure I'll make this one come true sooner or later. But I'm not even. That's probably not enough to buy anything outright, even that's half decent. I think it probably is. Because of just this clarity that I suddenly have with like what interest is, what it does, how it keeps the poor, because the poor end up spending twice as much money as the rich do on the same stuff, because it's all debt and it's all also VAT is this sort of tax on the poor as well. Everyone pays the same VAT rate regardless of how wealthy they are, which just means that the poor massively lose out when it comes to VAT.
But I think so. It seems to be this bizarre thing where the more you borrow, the lower the interest rate. Like a mortgage these days, the interest rates are so low at the moment, but it's when you're borrowing payday loans, when you're borrowing kind of very small amounts of money, that the less you borrow, the more you're going to get charged for it. And to your example about VAT, I was also reading about this is public knowledge, and I don't know why I hadn't joined it up really or registered it in my brain, but like the Macron increasing the tax on diesel is what provoked the yellow vests riots, because the tax, which is designed to help the environment ultimately, it's the people who drive vans for a living, who are sort of in the lower paid, lower earners, the poor people again, who get punished the most for these things. There's no proportionality. Is that the right use of the word?
First we rinse out the poor with huge interest and stuff being like poorly made, and no one's got enough capital to get good quality versions of anything, so they have to keep buying things over and over again in a way that if you've got money you don't. And now we're seeing this tax on the middle class next. Let's rinse everything out of the middle class now by cutting interest rates, and then talking about negative interest rates, which I don't even know how that works. Do you then just take your money out and put it in a mattress? Like, meanwhile, the position of the wealthy is completely protected, because the whole system is set up to protect their wealth. And the way Rushkoff puts it is, money doesn't have to be this centralized currency thing. And in fact, trade was happening really well for a long time in the sort of Middle Ages with just sort of local currencies, and people would trade stuff, and you'd get these booming businesses, and you'd see the wealth of these people, these merchants rising, and everyone was sort of getting wealthier. And the sort of aristocracy saw this happening and said, oh, we can't have this. No. We can't have poor people getting money because we'll sort of lose our power. And so they said, no, you're not allowed to use that local currency. You're not allowed to use these tokens. You've got to use the Queen's money. You've got to use the official money, which we will lend to you at a rate of interest. So we're going to kill you if you don't use this money, or lock you up, or whatever the mechanism of that is. We're going to turn our wealth into the sort of the gold reserve, the thing that you have to be lent, and that always implies some sort of interest payment, which ultimately means we can continue to do very little. Whilst to me that interest represents getting something for doing absolutely nothing. Just the virtue, the fact you happen to have capital up front, means that you can indefinitely just keep getting more money without doing anything. Meanwhile, what's paying that interest is the labour of those hundreds and thousands and millions of people that are working for a living, working hard, or looking at their phones, scrolling, looking at ads, or whatever it is. Like they've found ways to harvest more and more of our money from us. But that wealth doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the work of all of us. But the system is set up in such a way that it's just collected by the ultra wealthy in a way that the only way to do anything about is to just reject that centralized method of that currency, that the Queen's currency kind of thing. And that's possible. Like local currencies, once you see these, the Brixton pound even, once you introduce these local currencies and suddenly it's not all this engine designed to make interest for the aristocracy, it turns into this thing where it actually, like, that money gets spent a lot of times and it moves around, and you actually see a lot of affluence kind of emerging from that sort of system. And that is something that we have to be looking at that.
I was reading in I think it was a quote from Naomi Klein about how, we're painted this picture of the future where, we're going to have, everything is delivered. We can, we'll have driverless cars, it's all be AI and magic, and, technology is going to make it all good. But it kind of, in the background of all this are really low paid humans filling up the driverless cars and working in the warehouses and being paid nothing and being treated poorly, and we all just, and I think that these are that sort of interest rate and the levels and the expense and the way they're applied to what we were saying about the less you're borrowing, the more you pay, it's just a kind of, I don't understand quite how it's just insidious, really. It's like, and I was thinking about at the personal level, like why do I've generally definitely all the way through my 20s and into the beginning of my 30s had a very relaxed attitude to debt. Very much. It's like, well, I've got no choice. If I want to do these things, then that's what I'm going to do. These are the tools available to me, blah, blah, blah. But I
only live once.
Yeah, well, whatever. I'll figure it out. But I have to say that from a very young, you talk about your paper rounds. Yeah. And my husband is very good at telling me about his 2 paper rounds. I had 2 paper rounds and I saved and blah, blah. It's like, all right. I was really lucky, quite little, even though my parents were really, you asked about saving. I was thinking, what did I save up for? And I wasn't really, like buying a record or doing something. All of that stuff cost money that was more than my weekly pocket money or something. But I could translate something from English into Croatian and get the equivalent of a grown-up's weekly salary, monthly salary. Do you know what I mean? Or go and tutor somebody English for a couple of hours, and I'll be like loaded as far as I was. It was like way exceeded what my parents were ever. My mum and dad literally worked out when I was away for school 5 days. They literally worked out how much it would cost me to get a sandwich at break time every day, and that is the money that I got for the week. There was no extra bit at all. And even then, I got into how I worked out. In fact, my dad went to one of the local shops and said, "Look, this is my daughter. This is who I am. She's in this hostel going to school here. If she ever needs anything, please, if you could lend it to her, I will absolutely cover the debt." But then I took advantage of that. Not that he paid it back. I paid it back. But I'd got this like credit system working with this shop. So that, because I knew that, I've got that lesson booked in, or I've got that translation booked in 3 weeks. Let's have some chocolate bars, it's like whatever it might be. That literally, I just never. So I think from quite a young age, I just convinced myself that whatever the debts or whatever I did, I would sort it out. I could earn the money. And I'm not, I don't know what that. I don't know how useful that was.
But it becomes this permanent state of, there's this permanent thing in the back of your mind, and then it's always like, later I'll deal with that. You'll make a chunk in it once in a while and you'll feel good, but there's always this. But
I'm quite sure the actual, the debt of it, it took me a few years to identify this, but and as I met my husband, one of the things I'd achieved at the point at which I'd met him was that I had no debt. I'd sort of stopped carrying around this suitcase of an excuse for why I couldn't commit to anything or make any plans or any person. And I'd cleared it all. I was like, right, I'm ready. I can do this.
When I saw that this was a trap, that this credit cards and mortgages and just having nice things because you've got a middle-class salary, the way that becomes a barrier, a trap that stops you being like a true entrepreneur or a true like artist or anything. Like you're in this, and I always talk about it, but yeah, I just sort of mention it here. But yeah, like you're just constantly working just to maintain this thing, but it doesn't. You have to work for a living the whole time. And that's sort of like what it is. It sort of keeps us on that treadmill of generating this sort of revenue for these people that have the capital, ultimately. So anyone that has actually started a business with some capital, either like, I don't know, they're good at talking to investors, but usually those people are also sort of independently wealthy, I think. They can start a business because they don't have to work for a living. Those of us that have to work for a living, either by just to get by on a sort of support a very modest existence, or because we've got used to our nice things and we have to work a certain amount to sort of keep that up. It just keeps us out of that domain of being able to actually do something ourselves that would perhaps disrupt these people's dominance once in a while. I think it's worth mentioning the chart. I put this on. I wrote up my approach to business on my website yesterday. I finally did it, and it was. And I talked about this podcast. I talked about a couple of things. So I put this chart of since productivity has been rising consistently throughout like the 21st century, but around 1970, the salaries stopped rising, and all that money is just going to those wealthy people. And you get to about like Ronald Reagan and Thatcher and the sort of neoliberalist like deregulation thing, where now all that, instead of being given to staff, workers, money is just being used to for stock buybacks and sort of doing tricks in the stock market to keep that to try and kind of increase the safety of the thing, because it's all deregulated. We are not seeing the benefits of all of our labour, and in a like just really, we're getting a lot of us are getting just enough to feel like we are. But when you look at the CEOs getting like 100 times more greater salaries than the people that are doing all the work, you have to go like, this system, there's something wrong with it. Yeah. We need something different.
Yeah.
And then so my journey over the last 3 or 4 years, after talking to a guy, he was a PM at a company I worked for, this Chinese guy that sort of had these wise sayings, like not that old. I don't even like putting it like that, but a friend of mine put it like that. I was like, I don't really, it sounds a bit racist, but I think, fine, let's paint that picture. But he was like, yeah, this middle class trap, this is exactly what he said. And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I need to get out of debt. I need to cut my costs. I need to get free. I need to figure out how to create enough space for myself to actually be able to build something of my own, because that's really my drive ultimately, is to build something of my own. And it's taken, if I didn't have Sharon's house to move into and all that kind of stuff, I would have found another way though. Like I would have, I'm so confident that I would have just moved in somewhere really small and sort of put stuff in storage or sold loads of stuff, I think, in support of this. But luckily I have a wonderful partner. I seem to have just like, I don't know.
I think we've both done a great job of finding people that already had a house.
Yes. It's the way to do it.
And a mortgage.
Yeah.
House and mortgage. Yeah. Woo. Well done, us. Achievement unlocked.
But yeah, so and now like because this passive income that I talk about, if I hadn't freed myself of this debt, if I hadn't cut all my costs just down to the wire, this wouldn't have covered half my monthly costs at this point. But now, like because I've focused on it, I've concentrated on it, I'm like really able to. If it hadn't been this way, I would have just stayed in Germany, and that was like massively cut my costs as well. But I seem to have had my cake and eat it, some kind of thing. I don't know what tense that sentence was in, but I would say like just interest is not something, like, don't ignore it. Percentages are so as soon as percentages are just a horrible thing when it comes to understanding things.
I think
they can be used in so many ways to obfuscate what's really going on. But what the best thing I've learned in recent years is just pay attention to those percentages, understand what they truly mean, understand what that means about the nature of money. And I think you can start to try and get free of it.
Yeah, I think the only thing that we haven't mentioned in this conversation is cumulative interest.
Yeah, that's
that is a whole area that you might you learn about it in school, but I don't think there's no way that got translated to me to my financial life. And one of the things that helped me enormously, I'm just going back to the sort of education piece, actually, as a woman in my 30s, I started being introduced to much the other women in my who were my friends at the time started introducing me to stories. Like there was a book, not stories, books that were about women's finance and women, and how we're not particularly, there's still this patriarchal background of, well, don't worry about that, dear, you're going to marry somebody with a house. Which, obviously I achieved. But I read this one book I remember called Love Is Not Enough. And I just remember my dad banging on to me when I was little about, as a girl, you need to be able to earn money, because if you get divorced, you're going to be with the children, you're going to have to look after everything. That was the scenario he presented me with, which is I don't know why I've thrown that in at the end of cumulative interest, but I think what I'm adding to this, where we've had our whole conversation has been about like the similarities, and we are not two women talking about it. This is a non-gender relevant conversation as far as we're concerned. But I think there is something about being poor and about taking the burden of that. There's also something about being poor and a woman or a woman in general that just adds an extra dimension to the whole thing that makes it even harder. And part of that is that sort of don't worry your pretty little head about it, because this is not women's, and that exists. So there's all these kind of depressing things about the way we're not taught about money.
Yeah, and that cumulative interest thing, I did see a piece on it. It was like, if you just sort of like start saving young, you're going to be
loaded.
Such a good position when you're 40. That's actually I've got this list of Christmas presents that I've got all these I sent you the thing. I've got all these, my family, it used to be that I had to buy 8 presents, plus it was my dad's birthday on Boxing Day, and now I've got 6 siblings, all with partners, all with children now.
Can't you just do children only get presents?
Well, I'm trying to, that's the thing. I'm trying to figure that out. So I was like, how old? But I think I want to while we were talking, I was like, maybe I might just buy the children like a little bit of a Bitcoin each.
Why not? It's like, why not?
It's a boring uncle, but I'm sure they want something. But I think they're going to have so much stuff. They've got if you've got 6 uncles and aunts
or
buying you toys, it kind of gets gross pretty quickly. So I think maybe this is I don't know.
I think I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Really, because people have bought. People used to buy premium bonds, didn't they, for presents? Probably still do. Guess, same sort of thing, isn't it? I think, and also, I think what we moan about our aunties and uncles about when we're little doesn't necessarily play out when we're grown up. You know what I mean? It's like, I didn't really like that thing when they bought me a Bitcoin, but I'm glad I've got it now. Whatever it might be. You can
touch it when you're 18.
Yeah.
When it's worth $1 billion. Well, it might just. But then, it's worth mentioning that, it's interesting how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies potentially feels like redefines all this, but there is also this sad fact that a lot of it is being used by the wealthy to kind of hedge their, kind of save their money away from prying eyes. So it's very tricky. But if we could just social networking, technology is at a place where we could perfectly easily have peer-to-peer currencies. forming the backbone of like just a lot of stuff that we buy all the time. So if we could get away from Bezos and sort of start to have companies kind of using sort of a more egalitarian currency, then you sort of start to hopefully, you got 160 million of those dollars things, have you? Good work. We're actually just getting on fine without that. That to me is that how the camel's back has to break eventually, that states will obviously rabidly defend sort of how things work, but I don't know. This is too much of a ramble to end the podcast on. But there we go. Interest. What a situation. That's 51 minutes. So we are over. We are long. We've run long.
We've just been very excited about being back.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's a bonus episode. So let's. I can feel that we've been going on a long time because the urgency of urination is mounting.
How delightful.
How delightful. You wanted TMI. Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com and subscribe. And you can find us on Patreon and give us a bit of money just to support the Patreon. It doesn't have to be real crypto. No, give us real money. Those old-fashioned dollars that people used to care so much about. Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter mostly. And yes, I think come and join us, join our Slacks, and then we could have chats about how to, what it all means. What's it all about?
Hopefully. And it was I updated the website so the header looks a bit less janky on different devices last week.
That's cool.
Fun.
Thanks for that.
Anyway, all right. Well, we'll see you next time. And take care. Enjoy your December as it gets colder and colder. Bye.
Bye.